Support your immune system with Airborne's most complete immune support formula yet. Airborne's delicious effervescent tablets are packed with 7 powerful ingredients to fill the holes your immune system may have, so that you can enjoy those unmissable moments in your life. Learn more at airbornecomplete.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
This episode is brought to you by Rakuten. If you're shopping while working, eating, or even listening to this podcast, then you know and love the thrill of the hunt. But are you getting the thrill of the best deals? Rakuten shoppers do. They get the brands they love with the most savings and cash back. And you can get it too. Start getting cash back at your favorite stores like Samsung, Expedia, and Sephora. And even stack sales on top of cash back. It's easy to use, and you get your cash back through PayPal or check. The idea is simple. Stores pay Rakuten for sending them shoppers, and Rakuten shares the money with you as cash back. Download the free Rakuten app and never miss a deal. Or go to Rakuten.com to start getting the most bang for your buck. That's Rakuten.
Hello, this is Simon Brew. I'm the editor of Film Stories magazine, and a very warm welcome to a very special episode of the Film Stories podcast.
Come with me.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
And movies that had stories.
That the story just sucks them in.
This is just the beginning.
Stories. We would be honored if you would join us.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to Film Stories with Simon Brew. I am Simon Brew. As always, that's absolutely everything you need to know about me. The aim of the podcast, though, well, it's given away by the title. I'm here to talk of the stories of films, and I tend to talk about production stories, marketing stories, release stories, distribution stories, writing stories, all those ingredients, really, that go towards making the films that we know and sometimes love, just that, the films that we know and sometimes love. The films I tend to cover on this podcast, they lean more towards the mainstream than anything else. They're films I'm interested in or invested in to some degree. Try not to do snark. I try not to punch down. This podcast is a celebration of cinema and a real appreciation that somehow films manage to get made. Now, this particular episode of Film Stories is one of my occasional specials where I bring in a filmmaker to talk about their latest release and a little bit of their body of work as well. And I'm delighted to say that for this episode of Film Stories, I'm joined by actor, screenwriter, producer Paul Reiser. Now, he joined me to talk about his brand new film, The Problem with People, which opens in UK cinemas on the 8th of November 2024. In the film, he stars opposite Colm Meaney, and it's directed by Chris Cottam. Now, there's not actually an awful lot you need setting up ahead of going into the conversation I had with Paul Reiser. That we talk about one or two of his other projects, including the TV show Mad About You, but I think most of it is pretty much explained as we go along. So with that in mind, let's just get cracking. I'm going to set things up with a taste of the trailer for The Problem with People, and the other side of this, you'll hear my conversation with Paul Reiser.
Did I ever tell you about me grandfather?
And the brother?
As close could be, until his brother sailed to America and they never spoke again. I want you to find our American family and make things right.
All right, Dad.
Now! I want you to call them now.
Hello, not interested.
Hello, I am your cousin, Kieran.
And he wants you to just go to Ireland. What's the worst that could happen?
Cousin Barry from America.
Dad, your great nephew, Barry.
Never thought I'd live to see it.
The good Lord granted Fergus such a full life.
Till the American arrives.
Jesus, your father left half of everything to Barry.
Who's to say that my dad wasn't still alive when Barry entered the room?
That was a clip from The Problem with People. I am delighted to be joined for this Film Stories podcast special by its producer, its co-writer and its co-star. It's Paul Reiser. Hello, Paul Reiser. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
And where are you? Can I ask that? Is that nosy and
I'm
intrusive?
I'm in a bunker
A bunker.
right outside Berlin. No, I'm in Los
You
Angeles.
too. Knock the wall. I'm next door.
I
Yeah, that's right.
heard some noise. Yeah, I'm at my home in Los Angeles,
And
and
very much tidier than mine. It looks like I'm in a hole in the West Midlands here in England, where you have not. I've noted. I've read quite a lot of interviews you've done for your new film, The Problem with People, about how you fell in love with Ireland and wanted to write a film set in Ireland, but never the West Midlands. I've noticed.
No, that's next.
That's what bucket lists are for.
That's the follow. That's the sequel where Colm Meaney and I end up in the West Midlands. Absolutely.
Well, it is jumping to the end a little bit, but I mean, can I say in a spoiler? It's spoiler free, really. I don't think it's ever in peril. You and Colm both survived this film. This isn't like Aliens, where people are in deep peril. The characters that you have I spoiled?
No, well, some people may not have seen Aliens yet, so maybe let's not spoil that one.
I'm going. Do you know what? I'm going to take a leap and suggest that at least one person dies in Aliens.
Yeah, that's not untrue.
I think that's fair to say. I think I'm allowed that, especially the extended cut. The extended cut.
Yeah,
I mean, they're gone within a few minutes. So, okay. So now we've done our admin. June the 9th, 2022 was the first I saw of The Problem with People. A report goes up on Deadline saying that you're making this film. You're going to co-star with Colm Meaney in the movie. And then we're here 2.5 years later talking about it. I would imagine, given the world of independent film, and I talk about it a lot on my platforms, that just to get to June the 9th, 2022 was quite an adventure. And I'm just wondering, can you fill in the bit before the Hollywood trade press starts reporting about it?
That's very astute and very it's really the crux of the matter. We were it's nothing but an uphill climb. This was very close to being a slam dunk simple thing, and then it wasn't. We actually, my co-writer Wally and I finished a script January 2018, and we're ready. Yeah, and we're ready to go, and we had funding, and we were going to shoot in the fall of 2018, and then there was a little hiccup, and then it was 2019. Then I got busy, and it got pushed. Just like enough things get pushed, and then I got busy, and we were doing a reboot of Mad About You, which was the better part of the year.
I have heard of this.
Then COVID came, and then nobody was working.
I've heard of that too. Yeah,
I heard of that. And then between we had money, we didn't have money, then things changed, and then just getting my schedule and our director's schedule and Colm Meaney's schedule, because he works all the time. We had to sort of just jump forward. Say, okay, put our finger down. Summer of 2022. Nobody take anything for this 2 months. And I had seen enough false starts and hiccups that I said, I'm not going to believe this until I land in Dublin. And furthermore, I'm not going to believe it until I see the whites of Colm Meaney's eyes. We had spoken. We had never met, but we spoke on Zoom like this. And funny enough, a week before we were to begin shooting, we got together. I said, he met me in my hotel, and I said, there's a lounge in the hotel. I'll meet you down there, and we'll have a pint, and we'll say hello. And I got there extra early, and I got a good table, and then time comes, and he's not there. When I said, something's going on. 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Finally, I said, I knew something would go wrong. He chickened out, whatever. Turns out there was a bar behind a closed door, not in the lounge. So he heard lounge, but he heard bar. I meant lounge. So he was waiting for me, 20 feet away from each other. I went, thank goodness he didn't leave and go to hell with him. When we sat down, it was a firm embrace and a pint, and I went, all right, we're off and running now.
I've interviewed people about hundreds of independent films and how fragile they are. Yours could have been as fragile as Colm Meaney went to the wrong bar, thought you weren't turning up, got hammered, and then just went home.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah, and it's given me, it's underlined for me something that I've always known, but when you see it play out, it's really clear that when you see a movie, especially an independent movie that becomes a hit and finds its audience, it's really a miracle because it means it has successfully dodged any number of obstacles that to get the right actors, to get the financing, to get it all done together, then to come out well, and then to get distributed and to find an audience. That's so many places where it could fail.
Yeah. And in terms of contrast there, I think it was the summer of 2013, I think it was, that you shot both Whiplash, that did become a hit, and Life After Beth, which is a really underrated, terrific movie that just struggled to find the audience. Presumably they're back to back. You're putting the same amount of effort and energy into both of them. And it's just like the
they're
gods are shining.
very different.
They're exactly the same. They're not. They're the same.
Interesting.
It's a double bill.
Exactly the same. Yeah, it is a double bill. You've seen one, you can skip the other. Whiplash is a perfect example where the script was phenomenal. The director was brilliant. And that's, should be enough. But it's not, because the execution's like, he'd never really directed a full-length feature like that. Yeah. The director and writer-director Damien Chazelle was obviously enormously talented. But then to get it done, and I was blown away. I saw it the first time I saw it. It was the opening film at Sundance, and it was a big 1,200 seat theater, and it played like a horror movie. Strangers were grabbing the arms of the people next to them, like, oh my, and you go, this is a guy in a room, a teacher and a student, and the teacher is out of his mind. And you're watching it as if it's just, the apocalypse. So it was, that one thread the needle so beautifully. It found its audience, and people still talk about it. It was really, as I say, it's a miracle. So many things have to go right. And, go. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, the other miracle you seem to have here is you held your cast and crew together then. Because when you were talking just before, you mentioned Colm Meaney, but also you dropped in the name Chris Cottam, the director of this. Were they all on board in 2018?
Yeah.
So they all stuck with it for...
Well, Chris Cottam and I came in very early.
Yeah.
And he had read the script and responded to it, and we met, and I said, okay, this guy is great. This is going to be... So he and I, and then when the script got to Colm Meaney, he responded also pretty quickly, loved it. I was relieved and tickled. Yes, you can lose anybody. And in fact, Colm got work, Chris got work, and at any point, I could have said, hey, we'll get somebody else. I didn't want to. It felt like this is the right trio to be making this movie. So that was it. We didn't have crew and anybody else set. Those were the main players. And so when, we, like I said, we just sort of had to throw our net further out and say, okay, put your pen in the calendar for 2022. And then time we finished it, I thought we would have it out early 2023, and it was hard to find a distributor.
Yeah.
And the whole world has changed. I really don't understand the business. I don't know who does understand the business, but I'm really sort of removed. And I every day keep finding out, people go, yeah, well, that's just the way the business is now. It's so horrible. So we found distributors, and, then they have to say, well, let's wait 6 months because that's the window. So before you know it, it's 2 years plus 2.5 years from when we finished to now it's reaching theaters.
So if I test you on precise individual details of the shoot now, given that it's 2 years on,
I should be okay. Go ahead.
I'm not going to do that. I do think when it comes to independent film, though, the thing I've learned from doing this for a while, I'm not a young man anymore, is you learn a lot from the end credits and from the thanks and the special thanks of end credits in particular. Not least because you find the human beings who never really get saluted otherwise in like conversations. And you've got names in there. So, and I'd imagine you're related to at least one of these people. But you've got names in there like Fiona Looney, Lisa Black, Paul Van Carter, Chris Bucci, Paula Ravitz, Jay Cohen, Michael Pelmont, all in there in the special thanks. Can you just touch on what's so special about one or two of those? I like picking names out of credits and just like putting them in the limelight.
That's so funny. Well, Pelmont and Jay are my managers and agents, respectively.
They get very special thanks, I've noticed.
Well, they were very helpful.
Yeah. Aren't you supposed to fall out with managers and agents?
That's coming. Okay. That's coming. Lisa Black was, Paula Ravitz is my wife, so she gets special thanks for,
of course,
allowing me to get lost into this project. Well, Lisa Black's interesting. Somewhere 2017, maybe 2016, I did 2 or 3 days on a little indie movie in New York.
Yeah.
And on one of the days, I was chatting with this woman, the producer, Lisa Black. And she said, just casual conversation, what are you up to? I said, I've had this idea for years. I want to make a movie in Ireland. She goes, well, I have, connections in Ireland. I said, well, I don't have a script yet. I said, I've been playing with this idea. I've wanted to make it, and I probably should write it with somebody. And she just very assertively said, I know a guy you might want to meet. I said, sure. And she introduced me to this guy, Wally Marzano-Lesnevich, who was a friend of hers, or I think a client of hers at some point. And we just met for coffee while I was in New York. And I said, I have this really bare bones of an idea. New Yorker goes to Ireland. I don't know why. That's really all I had. But we hit it off. And so, again, happy accidents. Had I not spoken to that woman on that day, and she pointed me to this guy who turned out to be a terrific collaborator, it might not have happened. So I always want to remember to thank her.
Always a story in the end. Always a story in the end credits.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot. There's a lovely line in there as well. And just in terms of you and Wally finding the eureka moments of this when writing the script, I think there's a lot. It's something, I'm badly paraphrasing it. It's mighty easy to fall out. The weight of carrying it forward is not easy at all. I just thought that was really succinct, very, very simple, and kind of captured a lot of what you're going for with the film. What were the little, because you talked in previous interviews about how Wally was kind of a catalyst in helping you crack how to approach this that had been in your head for a while. But when the two of you were together, what were then the small moments that turned it? What were the kind of discoveries, if you like?
These are great questions. As I say, I had just an urge to write a movie where I go to Ireland, and it didn't have a reason or a story. So when we were batting it around, and we suddenly, within short order, said, what if we thought first thing was like a business thing. What if I'm some guy who finds a piece of land that I found a title to? And I said, I don't know what that is. And then we zeroed in on family. And I said, okay, what if there's 2 pieces of the same family, Irish side and the New York side? Okay, and it has to be conflict because obviously, nobody ever, no story ever comes from everybody getting along. But so we were zeroing in. He said, okay, so he goes over their distant relatives, but when we zeroed in on the sort of the meta message of it, which was the world peace, it's like the scene of Colm Meaney's father, played by Des Keogh.
Yeah.
The opening of the movie is this man in his upper 80s, just bedridden, watching the news, and it's one horrible piece of news, conflict, and people fighting, and it's just, this is the world as he sees it. And as we say in the movie, he goes, what, people don't even know what they're fighting about, like, we're no better, our family. And he gets the idea, which was the kickoff to the movie. Let's at least see if we can't make peace in our family. And I thought, okay, now we have something. That is a really gives you a goal, because I didn't want it to just be fluff and silly. There's going to be that was sort of the spine of the movie and the sort of lofty ambition, if I may use the term. But then once you have that, you can hang all the silliness and poke fun of the pretension, because, okay, the spirit hopefully is there. And that's what I hope people do get. And they seem to be really responding to that like, oh, at the heart of this movie is a bigger issue. We all watch the news and go, what's the difference between these two religions exactly? If you put the Sunnis and the Shiites together, like, show me the difference again. We're not all that different if we cut through all the hostility and the history of offense. And what it also afforded us story-wise was the story starts with two sweet things. A guy honoring the wish of his father, this uphill climb, find this guy you never heard of and get him over here and let's end this generations long feud. And then the two guys, Colm Meaney and myself, who are coming together for nothing but good. Like, yes, I will come over. I will accept your invitation. We'll raise a pint and we're going to get to know each other. We'll put an end to this silliness. And that's where you start. And obviously it goes awry. And because that's the problem with people. There's, within short order, there will be suspicion and doubts, and we'll each find the worst in each other and in ourselves. But finding that story, then that's okay. Now we can go write it. And then there were other beautiful the discoveries. The daughter in the story, and that I don't want to spoil, but the story with the daughter, gave it a spine that, and some surprises that were fun. I'm the father. My two boys are in their 20s, and I know that that's a very real thing. Is that you, more than anything, you want your children to be settled and on their way and launched. And at the start of the film, I thought, okay, if part of his thing is he's worried unnecessarily because his daughter is fine. But like, no, she's by herself and she's raising this kid. She needs to find somebody. I thought, well, that's a true sweet thing, but it also helps dilute whatever bad behavior and aggressive behavior on my character's part. You go, he's a good guy. We saw him concerned about his daughter. All right, he's not. But as I say in the movie, he started. I came over in good faith. He started the problem. He started the trouble.
I see. I'm fascinated now because hearing you talk like this about the nuance of these moments, I'm now going back to that period from 2018 to 2022 where you and Colm Meaney hadn't met, but presumably were Zooming like this.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, what were you talking? I mean, were you? I did wonder. I wrote down The Odd Couple. Were you having like a Walter Matthau, Jack Lemmon film festival?
No, it was.
What were the little bits that the two of you were talking about?
It was not about the script at all. The first conversation, I had heard that he wanted to meet and he liked the script, and I was very flattered, and Wally and I were both very pleased and flattered that Colm's first comment was, he said, "I can't tell you how relieved I was." He said,
I read that.
You read a script, right? You read a script by an American trying to write Ireland, and it's all top of the morning and leprechauns." He said, "And you dodged that. You skipped all that, and found the truth."
You teased it though. That was quite interesting. I think the tone of the movie teases it right at the start, and then you just like, nope. No, you're not having that.
Yeah. Well, that's
right.
I've always enjoyed that. Like when a movie sets their parameters and you go, all right, here's
that
what you
way.
think.
Go that way instead.
We're going this way. It's like, all right, so they know what we're thinking and they've already addressed it.
Yeah.
That's helpful. And that always sort of puts my mind at ease. When I watch a movie, it's like, can I trust these people? What are the guidelines here? And it also says the movie to the audience, yes, we have seen the Rainbow-y Ireland movie. This ain't that. Okay, great. Take me where you want to take me. But no, so it was, a little mutual admiration, and he was saying nice things about some work of mine he had seen, and I was long been a huge fan of his. And then we just talked politics. We were talking, he's quite, and we were talking sports. He lived in Los Angeles for a long time, and he's like really knows his American baseball. And went, far more better than I do. And so we were just talking about that. And his daughter was getting married, and we were talking about that and children.
Yeah.
We weren't working on the script. And to be honest, we never did. The script was pretty tight. He had no changes or suggestions. He was happy with it. Wally and I had worked on the script long enough that we felt it was pretty tight. So even when we got to Ireland, we had a table read, and it was funny. All the other actors said, "Oh, you and Colm have obviously worked together a lot, right?" I went, "No, met him yesterday," and like, "Oh, because it worked." I went, "Yeah, it does. Don't look too close, but it's working."
Table read. I was kind of preempted something I was just going to ask you a little bit further down the line, but I do want to come to it because I've just read Daniel Stern's memoir.
Me too.
In Daniel Stern's memoir, he talks about being in the first table read for Dinah, and he describes a moment sitting around a table with you, Steve Guttenberg, Kevin Bacon, Tim Daly, Mickey Rourke, and a first-time director as well. And how Barry Levinson cast you all for your bullshitting powers was his words. But he described that as one of the most creative experiences he ever had. And the bit from me looking at that was you were all effective film novices around that table, or the majority of them were. When you come to it, because I read also you managed to get a table read in for this as well. Now you come to a table read at this part of your career, and you're sat at that chair of the table, not as the new person, not as the comedian coming into a film role, but as the writer, the co-writer, the producer, and the star. Does that change the mechanic of that read or how people approach you in any way?
Well, there's a different responsibility, if
of
you're
course,
an actor.
Yeah, which is where I'm going. Yeah.
Yeah. You just read your lines, and it's really for, excuse me. The table read is largely for the director and the writer to see if there are any glaring spots that need addressing, or lines that don't feel right, don't sound right coming out of particular actors' mouths. When we did the table, and actually the table read for this was a little difficult because we were still under a lot of COVID restrictions, so we only had a handful of us in a room, and about 10 of the actors were on monitors like this, and it's. You don't get the fun of looking at each other and playing with each other.
Yeah.
But it was, as I say, there were very few changes that we made. Can
you walk into a read like that with as much a sense? Because there's a joy to naivety and inexperience, I think. I just wonder if you can still capture that walking into a room on the first.
Yeah, because it's still the first time I'm hearing it. And, as a writer, we vacillate between, gee, I think I've written a big stinker, and the other end, like, this is kind of God's gift to literature. And I don't know why anybody would have any questions. So we're somewhere in the middle. But I really felt confident, when anything I've written, my standard is like, if I'm not looking forward to writing this scene, there's probably something wrong with it. It's like, it shouldn't be a fluff scene. It shouldn't be without some merit, whether that's really moving or that's really funny or that's going to be visually. There's got to be some. And same thing when you're reading it. And I would look at the script and go, okay, that scene's going to be really funny. That scene's going to be really sweet. That scene's going to be really, interesting. And that's sort of I go through it 1,000 times and like, okay, it's tight. There's not a lot of fat. Having said that, we cut like, oh, you know what? That half a page of silliness, it's fun to read, but you don't need it. Some stuff we shot very little. There's really only one scene that was just not included in the film, which I knew going in. I went, this is sort of questionable. It was funny dialogue that I enjoyed that I thought, don't really need this, but let's see. And it was self-contained that I knew I could pull it out. So there were no great surprises. And someone asked if there was a lot of improvisation, which there wasn't. The only real place was where there's two characters, Deacon and Malachi, who were sort of the frick and frack knuckleheads who just can't get enough of American mafia movies. And we sort of gave them free rein. Just have fun. Be dopes. The dopier you are, the funnier this will be. So we gave them free rein, but but having said that, anybody who had a different way of saying something, certainly the language, there were a couple of lines that we had written, and you get to Ireland and they go, well, we would actually say it this way. Like, all right, you do it your way. Let's be authentic and true.
I didn't write an improvisation question because the escalation was too tight when I was watching it, and there was a point about, I'm going very spoiler light, I'm not doing the exact moment.
Thank you.
Just that there's a point about an hour into the film where, in theory, I thought it could have ended. I thought you were building to an ending, and then there's one of the most delightful bits of escalation that I've seen in a long time in a film, which I won't go into the specific moment. I just thought tone and escalation for someone who can't do it fascinates me, because that's like a dark art that I don't see how you get right. And it's just
thank
you know, those are the little eureka moments for me as an audience member.
That's so fun. You know, one of the from the beginning, or you know, I would describe this movie. I said, well, it's sort of local hero becomes War of the Roses. You know, it starts idyllic and beautiful.
I see that.
And
I wrote the Odd Couple down. It's just like the more you battle.
They weren't an odd couple. They were actually very similar. They were so similar.
It's the combative nature. It's just like
but that's the problem with people.
Of course,
small P. But I remember War of the Roses, Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. It escalated in so many, 3 or 4 times, as I recall. You go, well, okay, well, they both realize they're doing damage and they're going to make peace. Like, oh no, she stuck it to him again. Oh my God, and they keep topping each other and going, wow, that's really fun and dark. And so here, you know, I knew where we wanted the movie to end, and I wanted the escalations to be. Part of the fun is they're both so childish, and that's part of the problem with people. You know, and that was the fun of playing it. To me, there's nothing funnier than a big tough guy being vulnerable or childlike. And Colm Meaney is a force. You know, he's just physically, he's a solid guy. You know, like you cannot move him if you don't want to be moved. You know, he's like Mike Tyson solid, and he's so smart, and he's such an icon. He's such a presence on film. So to write these things where he becomes childlike and really tickles me. And a couple of times I would have to push him. I go, be a cartoon here. Like when, you know, there's one point where he's feeling shameful and about his silly behavior. And he goes, wow. And he just gives me a hug. I said, just be silly. Don't try and be cool. I said, just be a dope here. And I find it so endearing watching him do that, because you don't question his fortitude. He's so he's such a force, you know. And I'm delighted to hear you say that you enjoyed the escalation, because you know you do have to escalate, but you have to keep it within the realm of reality and plausibility, and hopefully we did that.
Oh, it's one of my favorite moments of the film. I thought it was great. I'm if I can sort of weirdly ask the sort of skewed Hitchcock question, because I think it was Hitchcock that said, if the film you make next is a response to the one you've made before. And I kind of want to tailor that a bit more, in that the indie film that you throw your heart and soul into is, if that's a response to what you went through before. And I'm talking about 2005, The Thing About My Folks, which to this day doesn't have UK distribution. And I was listening to you early on. I was listening to an interview you gave ages ago to Kevin Pollak on his excellent chat show. And you talking about, I mean, your heart was pouring out as you talked about how Peter Falk was a catalyst to that film for you. And about, you know, how that related to your father's love of Peter Falk and then working with him. And then you threw everything into it for a film that I can't see legally over here, 19 years on. Yeah, and I'm not trying to drag you down, because I see people are asking you about it on social media this very week, oddly enough.
You know, that's sort of the question that always knocks my knees, and I'm handling it all the time. You know, where's Mad About You? I said, well, apparently I'll look into it, but like apparently the distribution deal only was for 2 years, and now it's not. And I have so many things that I've done that I go, I don't know where they are, which is ironic, because the beauty of the streaming world is now,
yeah,
you don't have to watch it in the opening weekend. It's just there. And then I find out that's not necessarily true.
yeah.
I did
Try
a
and
show
find
called,
any 1960s thriller on a streaming service.
yeah, or even,
None of them.
I did a show 5 years ago, a 7-episode series called There's Johnny, which I was
Yeah,
very
yeah,
proud of. And it was 1, 2, and then there was a third. It was on a platform called Peacock. And
Yes.
I think now it's findable on Roku if you have Roku. And I want, can I just put it out there? I'm not looking to make money. Can I just so that it exists? You put something into the stream and people will find it. Think about my folks. I made zero money and was not widely seen, but I hear often enough from people who just discovered it or saw it years ago when it came out and were moved by it, and it meant something to them, which means a lot to me. And like, that's all I care about. This movie, Problem with People, I think is a better film than the Thing About My Folks. It's a wider canvas. It's a deeper, funnier film, and but I thought, well, this has an appeal. I said, it has Colm Meaney, it has two guys, it has a lot of elements that are strong. It ain't going to be, Mission Impossible 5. It's not going to be in 1,000 theaters. In the States, it's in like 5 theaters, and then it's on, you can rent it and buy it. But to me, it's like everything I've ever done. It's like, this is not going to be for everybody. This is going to be for people like me. I would enjoy this movie. So just let it be out there. So I will try and find out how you can get a copy of The Thing About My Phone.
Legally, they're not shutting me down. I know how this game works.
No, we get whatever.
But no, I will find a way eventually. It will be on DVD in some country that I will import it from because I didn't get rid of my DVD player. But my curiosity there is knowing how hard it was to get that scene and knowing how much that film meant to you. When you embark on something else that you're writing, knowing it's going to be an indie film, does it affect your choice? Are there like 10 other indies that were in your head that you just thought, no, it's not worth pushing the boulder up?
No, first of all, I don't get that many ideas that excite me. And I can now look at my to-do list of the last 20 years, make the Peter Falk movie, make the Ireland movie. It's like, okay, done it. I mean, they're hugely satisfying accomplishments, and I'm proud of both results. I don't have I don't have a bunch. I don't even know if I have one that I would be willing to go, because it takes so much time.
Yeah.
And now at my age, I go, what do I have? 2 or 3 of these left in me, and I don't know that, you get more precious about your time. It's like, I didn't have an idea, but I had so much fun on this that the minute it was done, Wally and I said, all right, where do we want to go next? Italy. Okay. Why do I go to Italy? We started playing with an idea, and that actually spawned something else that was not location centric. So I get ideas, and there are things I'd like to do, and a lot of times ideas are brought to me, or germs. I'm developing a show now for TV. That wasn't it's my idea, but somebody came to me, the studio came to me, and basically invited me. We'd like you to do a new half-hour comedy. I went, I don't want to do a family comedy. I don't know that I need to want to. And I said, well, like, what do you think? And they said, well, like a family business. And I went, well, that hit me because I had a history with my father, had a business, and it was a family business. And my son, who worked on this movie, is a beginning writer. And I thought, well, this might be a great fun thing to do with my son. And suddenly, okay, I can get excited about that and put my heart into it. And by the way, I'm sure the end result will be any number of obstacles. Like, they didn't put it on. Oh, they put it on and nobody watched it. It's like, so you learn, and this is in life too. It's not just in indie film, but you learn to celebrate and enjoy the moments as they come, because if you wait for the next payoff, that one may not come. So you know what? Writing a script will be fun. If it gets made, great.
I mean, that notwithstanding, I think we should do interviews, just you and me, every 19 years to do an update on the visibility of your work. I think we can make a very long-lasting podcast series just on that. Every AI will fill in the gaps when I die, and you can keep going.
What? You know what? When you put in your iCalendar and it says, "Do you want to repeat this?" I go, "Yes." Every year? No, every 19.
Every 19 years. God, do it. That would be amazing.
Paul Simon. Yeah, I got it.
Thank you very much. So I'm nearly out of time. I am curious. You created these characters, Barry and Kieran. I mean, one of the things about indie film is you don't necessarily have to play by the rules of big studio stuff or anything like that. There any temptation just to take characters you've created and put them in something else without explaining it whatsoever? Could you take these two and do something, either Richard Linklater-y, meet them every 3-4 years? Could you just suddenly put them? I mean, you talked about Italy there. Could you just suddenly drop them in there in the middle of?
Colm and I were joking about that. It's like, well, it was.
He was an airline pilot in Die Hard 2 with a bad English accent as well. He could fly you there.
Well, there you go.
Oh, he crashed the plane. No, don't do that. Bad idea.
Bad idea. That would be fun. I mean, it's a bit presumptuous because like doing a sequel to a movie that nobody's.
But you don't even have to call it a sequel, do you? You just grab the characters and do. Didn't Tarantino do that? He just threw a character for no explanation into a completely different film.
You can't, yeah. You know, and I just watched George Clooney and Brad Pitt have this thing on Apple called
Wolves. It's a very weird side of the bus advert for Wolves.
No, it's
here in the UK.
Really,
yeah,
it was great fun, and I was watching it with my wife, and you're watching these two, and you go, it's not Ocean's 13, 11, or 12. It's just these two guys with supernova star power, and they're both brilliant, and they're clearly having fun together, and you can see the resonance of their other films together.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, and even some little writing jokes, and you go, okay, it's great seeing them together. So yes, could Colm Meaney and I do something different? Yeah, I would love to. You know, someone pitched me an idea of doing something with Helen Hunt. I went, that would be hard to do. You know, yes, we could play another married couple, but you would never not be thinking of a man about it.
So my final suggestion. It sounds like I'm doing pitching now. I'm not.
You are. No, I didn't realize you were working so hard for my career.
I'm doing so good. Right. So there was a production of Frankenstein directed by Danny Boyle that was done here in the UK. I think it was Johnny Lee Miller, was it, and Benedict Cumberbatch. And every alternate night they inverted the casting. And I'm just because I always come to something like this because I remember there was a reviewer here in the UK, Barry Norman, and when he reviewed The Fugitive, he had the most genius idea. And critics should never give you ideas for films, but with this one exception, that he said, what would make The Fugitive an even better film would be if you swap the Tommy Lee Jones and the Harrison Ford roles. You swap the actors, because then you've put ambiguity back into it. So my final suggestion to you, take this to stage, right? And alternate who plays which character each night. That would be.
Let me write this down because you're giving me gold. I don't want to miss any of this.
So in 19 years' time, that is the agenda that we're going to talk about. Paul Reiser, I'm really sorry. I've overrun. We're out of time.
No,
I didn't even find out if Wolves has got any wolves in it. I'm going to have to find that out.
No, it does not. You know, it is a pleasure to talk to somebody who has actually seen the film and has some intelligent and thoughtful questions and observations.
Was that the person before?
Understand. So it's a shame you didn't meet that level of expertise.
Damn straight. Story of my life. Paul Reiser.
Gave it a shot.
Huge congratulations on your film. And that was my conversation with Paul Reiser. The Problem with People lands in UK cinemas on the 8th of November 2024, and it's worth looking out for as well. It also brings to an end this latest episode of Film Stories. Thank you so much for listening and thank you for your time. If I've not bored you completely, you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Simon Brew, which is also the whole Film Stories project actually is on both of those platforms at Film Stories. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/Film Stories Online, youtube.com/Film Stories. If you go to store.filmstories.co.uk, you can find our print film magazines, Imagine Such Things, including the UK's biggest film magazine, store.filmstories.co.uk. Filmstories.co.uk is our entertainment website. That is clickbait free. Again, clickbait free. How can you possibly do that in this modern era? Well, we're giving it a go. Need your support though. Filmstories.co.uk, news, reviews, features, things like that there. And then if you really like this podcast, please do consider subscribing. Please do consider leaving ideally a hugely positive review. And if you're particularly enthused, if you go to patreon.com/SimonBrew, put some money in the pot there, you'll get the podcast early and ad-free pretty much every episode as well. You also find out the gossip of what I'm up to behind the scenes, and I've unlocked a weird chat feature I didn't know existed in Patreon, so I've been chatting there as well. That's patreon.com/SimonBrew. But that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening and thank you for your time. I'll be back soon with your regular episode of Film Stories. Until then, you all look after yourselves, folks. Bye-bye.